Hey, my name is Rowan Smith and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare and conquer your upcoming hike, trek or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for. Let's get into today's episode. All right, hello guys. So today I'm going to take a little bit of a pessimistic view to your training and your preparation. And I want to talk about when things go wrong. Now, this was inspired by something that's happened to me just over the last 12 hours. And I've had a pretty nightmare day today in the sense that I woke up and turned out someone tried to break into my Facebook account last night. Now, usually that is no big deal, get it all the time, no issue, but for whatever reason, this person was a little bit smarter, somehow managed to mess something up on my account, and now I am completely locked out. And Facebook is not very easy to help fix this situation, and I have absolutely no idea when I'm going to get back into this account. Now, for most people, it's not big a deal. Facebook's a part of some people's lives, but it's not that big a deal. But for me, with my business, I actually do run quite a large portion of my business on there. And it's a place where I communicate with a lot of people. It's where I run the free Training for Trekking, hiking and trekking Facebook group. It's also where I communicate with a lot of my clients. So it's a bit frustrating being locked out. And it's sort of got me thinking in the sense of, probably 2 years ago when I started really ramping up my business, and I was on the point of building out everything, and I was very conscious that I was doing a lot on Facebook and a lot on Instagram, but I was very conscious that something like this would happen eventually, and I knew something would go wrong. And because of that, I built in a lot of different things into my business to sort of deal with this particular type of situation. So it's not the end of the world. As much as it sucks, as much as it's stressful, it's not going to stop me. And I think this is a really good teaching lesson to use for when it comes to your training and preparation. Because when it comes down to it, it's very rare that things go perfectly. It's very rare that your preparation and training goes smoothly. And it's very rare that you don't have things that come up, and not even just minor things, but major things that get in the way. And I want you to have a think about what you can do to prepare yourself for this. Now, a few common examples here and things that people have probably gone through at one stage or another. Say in the last 12 months, people have been going through many gym lockdowns and many lockdowns, obviously with COVID. And I know a lot of people initially were pretty left out in the cold when the gyms closed down. They were like, you know what? I have no idea how I can adapt my training. I have no idea how to get around this. I have no idea how to keep myself moving forward, because this is a big change and it's something that really is getting in the way. Or another typical one that I often hear is, when people get sick right before their trip, and 2 weeks out or a week out, they get sick, and all of a sudden the stress starts to build, things start to fall apart, and people get really worried and concerned, because it is that worst case scenario. If you've been preparing for months and months and then something goes wrong, you get crook, it can cause huge amounts of stress. Another thing in a little bit more of a short term is when you're actually on the trail, the amount of times people report back that their poles have actually broken and they've really struggled going down hills and down steep sections. And it's something that they've just had to deal with in the moment. Or even you can take it a step further, and when you have an emergency on the trail, when something truly does go wrong, you might break your ankle, you might sprain something, you might get something really bad that happens. It does happen, and you need to be prepared for it. And something I strongly encourage my listeners today is to think about all the different things that could go wrong in your preparation and on your hike, and think about ways that you might be able to overcome them. Now, you don't have to go way, way, way down the rabbit hole and come up with massive, massive action plans for everything that might go wrong. You might choose a few key things that you think, that might be relatively common or might be likely for me to happen or really stresses me out. And then you might do a proper action plan like we talked about a few weeks ago on this podcast. But on top of that, I really think it's a powerful strategy is just to sit down and write down all the things that could possibly go wrong. From the small things of like your shoelaces break, or maybe your hydration pack gets a leak in it, to the big things of like maybe, you have to go away for a few days to look after a family member. Maybe you get sick. Maybe you get, something else goes on. Maybe your flights get cancelled or whatever it may be. And write it all down, and just so you're aware of it and do a little bit of planning. So my challenge to you here is get a pen and paper, get your notes app on your phone or whatever it might be, and just start keeping a running list of all the things that could go wrong in your training and actually on your hikes. Write down every little thing that springs to mind. When you read a story, when you hear a story, write that down as well. And just keep a running list. And alongside these things, just write down a few points on how you're going to adapt and deal with these things if they do happen. So for example, as I was talking about before, if the gyms close, what am I going to change my training? How am I going to change my cardio sessions? Instead of using the step machine, what might I do? Instead of using these weights, how I might do that at home or whatever it may be. If you get sick right before your trip, what are you going to do to make sure that you get healthy as quickly as you can? What are you going to do to help manage those stress levels? What are you going to do to keep your training moving forward during that time, if that is all possible? Or if your poles break on the trail, what are you going to do in your preparation and actually when you're on the trail to make sure you are confident to get down those steep hills? Are you going to do this in your training hikes and prepare yourself to potentially go out without poles? Are you going to make sure you can find a pole on the trail or whatever it may be? But honestly, I really, really do recommend you write down a long, long list of all the different things that will go wrong. And don't get too pessimistic about it. Be proactive about it. Write down a few points on how you're going to adapt with it, how you're going to deal with it. And it could serve you very, very well in the long term. So a little bit of food for thought today, guys. Very, very important stuff, and I highly, highly encourage you to have a think about it. Now, to wrap this episode up today, a little bit of housekeeping on this front. As I said, I am locked out of my current Facebook account, so the Training for Hiking and Trekking group is currently having a little rest. I have absolutely no idea how long I'm going to be locked out for. Might be a few days, might be a few weeks, might be a long time. You never know with Facebook. So if you do have any questions, if you need a hand with anything, if you want to reach out about anything, or you need any help with your training, please reach me either on Instagram at the Summit Strength page or shoot me an email at rowan@summitstrength.com.au. And if you have messaged me over the last few days and I haven't gotten back to you, maybe try one of those other avenues and I'll definitely get back to you there. So thank you very much for listening today, guys. I really strongly encourage you to put this stuff into action because it can be very, very powerful. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.